I do want to make sure that before we go down this road, I clarify some things that were different in the Breonna Taylor case. Number one, the officers were considered to have botched what took place on that day because they fired blindly into a home, meaning that they initiated some sort of deadly force, and the only information that they had was allegedly that this was the place of some sort of drug activity. At that point in time, you ended up having her boyfriend, who returned fire, believing that someone was breaking in. It is very different when you are returning fire versus initiating fire, and there was no need to do so. It is a risk not only to the people in the homes, especially in a state like Texas, where everyone is allowed to have a gun, but it's also a huge risk to law enforcement. So being able to do this effectively, this is dangerous work that law enforcement engage in every single day. And I do want to be clear that I am always sorry for the loss of life. I don't care about the race. I don't care about any of those things. And honestly, I believe in the criminal justice system. I believe that if someone is accused of something, they should have their day in court. So I do want to say that I take issue with anyone losing their life, period, even if it's somebody that's accused of a crime. And I believe that they should go through due process and have an opportunity.
Texas Representative Jasmine Crockett stays busy. This time, she had to set the facts straight about Breonna Taylor's death at the hands of the Louisville Police Department after MAGA Representative Dan Bishop had the gall to say this just moments prior.
The ranking member invoked the Breonna Taylor episode, and I've just been sitting here reviewing it. Mr. Goldman said earlier on, well, this wasn't a no-knock warrant. Okay, what's the difference in the situation if they knock and they blow in, in 20 seconds, or it's a no-knock? In fact, in the Breonna Taylor case, that wasn't a no-knock warrant. They said they knocked and waited 45 seconds, and they went in. I don't understand the difference. I don't understand my colleague's reaction that
if you would yield, I could share the difference with you.
You've talked for a long time. I'm going to talk during my time.
Okay. Then I would tell you the difference.
Maybe you can provide context for your egregious double standard.
This supposed egregious double standard concerns the death of Brian Malinowski, who was shot by ATF agents who accused Malinowski of firing back while the department was serving a search warrant. Malinowski was accused of firearms trafficking for illegally amassing firearms and selling said firearms without a license. The argument has been made that Malinowski's death at the hands of law enforcement was an avoidable tragedy. But equating and conflating it with Breonna Taylor's case, well, that's beyond the pale.
The reason they entered this residence and jeopardized this entire family, including Ms. Malinowski, who has no allegations against her, and shot this man dead, is because he didn't have the proper license for the business they say he was engaged in. And it's even disputed about whether he was engaged in that business.
Correct.
And in that case, Ms. Breonna Taylor's boyfriend was without any contradiction engaging in illicit drug activity and receiving and dealing. He was a drug dealer, and he was carrying it on in her place of residence. I can't account for the gross disparity, except that Americans hear a lot, and I hear a lot back about concern about a double standard of justice. Is there a double standard of justice here, Mr. Cummins, in those two episodes?
There appears to be, and that causes a loss of trust in government and in these agencies.
With that context and Dan Bishop's opinion clear, let's pick up where Jasmine Crockett left off.
But in this particular set of circumstances, we know that if somebody shoots at me, in fact, some would argue that last week I had a colleague that decided she wanted to shoot at me, I'm going to shoot back. And that's what happened here. But what's more frustrating for me in this hearing, and what seems to be a pattern, is that we continue to attempt to litigate pending cases. I do want to afford an opportunity for those that will be granted access to discovery, video, whatever video doesn't exist, as well as any statements, depositions, all those things. Some folk that have access to all the information, and ultimately, if this needs to go to court, having a jury that will make a decision based upon the facts and the evidence. 97%, a bipartisan group of gun owners and non-gun owners, which conducts research on gun safety policies, found that with regard to common sense gun policies, 86% of gun owners, well over the simple majority, support keeping guns out of the hands of violent criminals. 70% of gun owners said they wish we would enact some kind of gun reform. 66% of gun owners, for instance, think guns should be restricted on school grounds, and 67% think that they should be restricted in government buildings. And I will tell you that I fall into those categories because I am a licensed gun owner. Yet despite the majority of Americans and the majority of gun owners, Republicans last week passed a bill out of the House that eliminates states' ability to regulate firearms on private property, government buildings, playgrounds, and gun-free school zones. If that's not hypocrisy, I honestly don't know what it is, and it doesn't end there. As a party self-proclaiming itself as law enforcement's biggest advocate and supporter, Republicans on this very committee have introduced legislation to abolish the law enforcement agency entirely. Ms. Sampson, I have a few yes or no questions. I may only get to one. Yes or no, are you familiar with the role of ATF?
Yes.
And to your understanding, the ATF is in fact law enforcement, correct?
Yes.
Does ATF's duties include preventing incidents, investigating cases, and recommending prosecution for issues of violent crimes and weapons for gangs and career criminals?
Yes.
Narcotic traffickers?
Yes.
Domestic and international arms traffickers?
Yes.
Armed human traffickers?
Yes.
Terrorists?
Yes.
And with that, I will yield. With that being said, Sheriff, do you know if within the last year between 2022 and 2023, if there was an increase or decrease in murder and negligent homicide in Tarrant County?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it did not increase.
Okay. In fact, it went down by almost 17%. So great job. What about manslaughter by negligence, or we call it criminally negligent homicide?
I believe it also went down.
Yes.
In the past, it may be on ticking up at the moment on intoxicated and homicide may be ticking up at the moment in 24.
Okay, well, we had a 56.52% decrease. How about rape?
All those categories we believe went down.
Absolutely.
And I do credit a lot of incredible law enforcement and municipal police chiefs.
Awesome. So there actually was a decrease by 3.35% in rape. Robbery went down 4.5%, and both aggravated and simple assault went collectively down by 3.18%, and theft went down by 3.89%. This is at the same time in which we're talking about the migrant community and stoking these fears that they're bringing all of this trauma and this crime and violence to our communities. But when we look at a Texas community, Tarrant County, actually everything has gone down. And I do want to thank you for your service in that way, because it takes a team. It can't just be one thing. It means we've got to have great law enforcement, but we also have to have really good policies, and we honestly need to be honest about the data that we see. So overall, it shows me that Sheriff in Tarrant County, all crime was down, is what I can tell from the numbers. And do you know if Dallas County, which is next door, if they had an increase or decrease in overall crime?
I think all of North Texas, we saw decreases.
Absolutely.
Every one. And again, Chief Garcia, Chief Neil Noakes, there's some great police work going on in both of those counties.
Absolutely. So every time we seemingly have a hearing on voting rights, we talking about the fact that people are cheating. So let's talk about who's cheating. I got a few articles. Are you familiar with the fact that there was recently a settlement with this little news company called Fox News?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That was for about $780-something million. Was it because they were lying about the elections?
Yes, it was for a...
Okay, there we go. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to keep going. There also was this article, because I don't want us to base anything on Georgia at all. Please, Jesus, not Georgia. Okay, because Georgia purged 87,000...
Will the gentlewoman yield? I think Georgia matters.
I will not yield. I am reclaiming my time. All right, so there were 87,000 people that were purged that were legitimate voters. So, no, we don't want to copy off of Georgia. Also, another GOP voter admits he committed fraud
Another one in Pennsylvania, man who admits he voted for Trump with his dead mom's name because he listened to too much propaganda.
The gentlelady's